back at it again with another Nam Studios podcast. Today we got another special guest. Well, they're all special guests, but a super special guest. We have Bea Roth with the Manhasset Women's Coalition against Breast Cancer.
Mouthful, yes.
Mouthful, I got it right though, right?
Yes.
How are you? Thank you for coming.
I am doing well. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and we got Tony Dean in the chair again. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, brother. Thank you again. Thank you both.
Excited to be here.
Awesome. So, Bea, tell me about Manhasset Women's Coalition Against Breast Cancer.
Sure. We can call it the coalition.
The coalition. Okay, yes, that's better. The coalition.
So it's a 28-year-old volunteer organization that was started by a group of women living in Manhasset, not really breast cancer survivors, believe it or not. A lot of people think that. But they were sick of seeing these high numbers of breast cancer even that many years ago. And they decided they wanted to do something. So they initially formed to have some events, raise some money, probably similar to how you started. And they originally were just giving the money for research to other organizations, like raising it, giving it away. It evolved over time in two very important ways. Number one, the sophistication of the organization really grew. Today, we have dozens of people applying for grants, which is a really competitive process. We have advisors. We have a team of people that have doctors, nurses, research experts, and we grant them based on merit, usually 2 to 3 research projects per year, and they can receive anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 each to do what's known in the lingo as seed money research, meaning that initial data you need to then go after the bigger funding for long-term research. So we're very proud of that, and that's grown over the years quite a bit. We also have a branch that started about 20 years ago we call Outreach, and that involves direct services to cancer patients, cancer survivors. At any stage in your cancer journey, you can come to us. Originally, it was intended for women in our community in Manhasset, but due to the need, it has grown massively. We primarily serve the North Shore community, mostly Port Washington and Roslyn and Manhasset only because that's sort of geographically and the word spreads. But we take cases depending on need from other locations, and we also coordinate with a lot of the Long Island coalitions to make sure that we're covering, appropriately the grounds. And that's essentially what the organization does. The outreach side assigns care coaches to individual recipients, and they do, everything under the sun. They get a stipend to spend towards non-insurance covered costs. We also have emergency funds. And just to give you an idea, because I think if I get real specific, it's helpful. This is last year, 2024. The outreach community there were about 150 women in that year that we were helping, 26 meals and groceries, 4 wigs, 19 mortgage payments, prosthetics, like wigs, about 5 of them. We have travel requests. We help with genetic testing, hospice care, lymph sleeves, cold caps, bereavement payments, and childcare. That's just to give you a sampling. It's both money and it's people. We have trained care coaches that go through pretty extensive training with a therapist, and they're anonymous. Anyone can come to us, and if they want to stay anonymous, we take that extremely seriously. They are assigned a number, and even within the outreach committee, they only refer to that person by their number. And unless that person says, I don't care if people know I'm sort of like I'm out, I'm a survivor, I'm out. But that's actually part of it. A lot of women that are diagnosed are extremely private. They don't want they're not sure how to talk to their children about it. They don't want the attention. And so, oftentimes this is like paramount to them getting help from us is that we keep it. Obviously their care coach knows who they are and has a direct relationship, but we keep it extremely confidential. On the research side, I don't want that to go. That's quite important as well. It's a little bit more obvious. We're funding research, as I said before. And just to give you an idea of the type of research we're talking about, last year, I'm going to give you just an example. For NYU Grossman School of Medicine, we gave them $75,000 for reimagining breast cancer risk predictions through explainable deep neural networks. This is like sophisticated stuff. We've got another $100,000 for triple negative breast cancer, which is, if those of you don't know, it's one of the most deadly breast cancers and the rare one. Cold Spring Harbor, $100,000. Again, looking at metastatic breast cancer. So we really target institutions that are serving our community, hospitals that are either New York City or Long Island, that work is going to be directly impacting our community. And also there's sort of a synergy there where then when we're serving our patients, we have connections in those hospitals, obviously 28 years of history, funding research. We know the doctors, we know who to recommend, who's a specialist in what. This hospital for someone with triple negative may not be the same place you send someone with hormone positive, depending on that person's needs. Like, can they get to the city? Can they not? And so we're very, very customized in the research as well. Because of your organization, I want to mention that one of the things we've been doing for the last few years is funding a Memorial Sloan Kettering Young Women's Cancer Project. So, and I want to talk about that for a second, because young women with breast cancer it's sort of, yes, obviously all women that have breast cancer have similarities in their experience, but I believe that it's a unique thing that young women face, and I'll tell you why. You know, if you're having surgery, everyone heals from that. Obviously, you have your own journey, but you heal from that. If you have radiation or chemo, you're going to endure that, and there's going to be a lot of similarity and experience there. But the long game that comes after those things have happened, the shadow of metastasis, the impact it has on your life and how it really changes you. You are not the same after you've had breast cancer. For a young woman is a very unique and different type of experience, because even though it changes all our lives, a young woman's trajectory has radically been changed in a way that maybe a person that's a little bit older doesn't experience, although you have to come back to yourself, reinvent yourself, get back to who you were. And everyone goes through that. I think, you know, when you're young, you just have sort of different challenges and, you know, than maybe someone who, like me, I was diagnosed at 48. I already had children. That wasn't an issue. Imagine now you're 28, right? Very different story. And you have sort of unique needs. And we have increasingly focused on that because we're seeing an upsurge. So we are trying to, you know, make sure that we are addressing the needs of that particular community as best we can.
Okay. And so you said years. How long has the coalition been around?
About 28 years.
Well, that's a long time.
Long time.
And so how do you go out there? How do you and your volunteers, before I get say you are the president.
I am. Yes, I should mention I was the former general counsel.
Okay.
And I can tell you the story of how I joined it, but I was the general counsel for about 5 years. And this is my second year as president.
Okay. And so how did you get involved with the coalition first as general counsel and then getting into president?
So I already said I was a survivor, but it's not the way you'd think. So in 2018, so we are, as I mentioned, we have about anywhere from 12 to 15 board members at any given time. And we come up for 2-year elections. It's elected, right? So we're constantly recruiting every 2 years to try to replace about, you know, percentage of the board to keep it fresh, to keep it moving so it doesn't get stale. It's part of the reason we've survived all these years. So there's a nominating committee. It's quite formal, of 3 members of the board, including a chair, and community members. And a community member nominated me as the general counsel because they knew I was an attorney, which I am an attorney. They called me out of nowhere and said, would you be interested in doing this? This is 2018. So they call you a couple months before your term would start. I thought about it. I was working at the time. I still work, but I was working at a job that would have made it challenging, but they promised me they'll make it work. So I accepted. And then the elections are in January. January 2nd of 2019, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So literally the week of my term starting as general counsel, I had to call these women who, by the way, I knew no one in the room other than one woman that I knew socially. I didn't know. It's really a true nominating process. I had to call a stranger. I'm barely understanding what's happening to me and tell her, because I have to tell her, I will not be at the election tonight because I was diagnosed with breast cancer this week. And I went from being the new general counsel to being the first care recipient of 2019, because literally it was like 2 years.
It's like getting hurt in the hospital.
It was so strange. It was surreal. And it's strange for me because my sort of my experience with the coalition almost lockstep with my cancer journey. It's very tied together for me. And the next call was to the head of our outreach, Dorothy Forte, who started outreach. And you know, I was pretty organized, but she was there for me. And during the course of my journey, I received a care coach. I did use her. I think that that's basically my story. Now, why am I still with the coalition? Well, I'm still with the coalition not because I'm a survivor. I'm with the coalition for the same reason that 28 years ago, those women decided they had to do something. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a family member to every woman that has breast cancer. I'm not a billionaire. Therefore, I looked at the situation and I thought, what can I personally do? And what I can do is this, right? I'm a lawyer. I have certain skill sets. And I find that as the lawyer, I was able to help the organization do all the things that lawyers have to do. And now I'm using it to, my knowledge of the organization to help it continue to run. My biggest responsibility, believe it or not, is getting everyone else to do their job. My job is to get them to do their job. And it's challenging because it's volunteers, amazing women, but they've got their full lives, jobs, children, relationships. Many of them are super philanthropic and belong to other organizations. So it's sort of, they're the push and pull. And also always thinking long-term, who are we going to replace our outgoing so-and-so with? We're always thinking ahead and trying to bring women in. So an interesting thing to note is we used to be 100% Manhasset women. That due to necessity and also because of the fact that our outreach recipients are an obvious breeding, to recruit people. We have now several board members who are from the Port Washington area. We have one that used to live in Manhasset and lives in New York. She runs our, this is Lori Kearns, she runs our programming. And so we've become a little bit more, let's call it, we have someone from Roslyn. We're a little bit more spread out, but that's great. I think we are more sort of diverse than ever, meaning I think it's dangerous to have just a bunch of buddies sitting in a room. You really want women that are super respectful and civil to one another, but aren't necessarily, of course, some of us are really close. Some of us have relationships outside the organization, but many of these women are complete strangers to each other. And it's amazing. They come together. When they walk into that room, the magic happens. They're so professional. They are recruited, they are nominated, and they walk in with their head right to get the job done. So I'm always incredibly impressed with what people do.
Do you feel like you being a part of the organization is part of the reason you found out early? Was it forefront of mind?
No. I found out early because I had the good luck of listening to my inner voice. So I had quite aggressive breast cancer, and I felt it, the classic way that women feel it. Believe it or not, I was having pain in the breast that wasn't impacted, and I was comparing them. And I felt something, and my Spidey sense immediately tingled. I said, this feels not right. And I told my husband, and no offense, men, oh yeah, what is that? And never forget, it was December 29th. We were on vacation. Next day I come home, go to sleep that night in my bed, and wake up in the morning, and my whole body is tingling. It is December 31st, New Year's Eve. Who goes to the gynecologist on New Year's Eve? I start calling my gynecologist office as soon as it opens, and I start saying, I exaggerated. I said, I have pain. I need to come in. I just knew something was off. And I went in. She said, come in. You might have to wait around, but it's slow today. It's New Year's. I just sat there waiting for my doctor to see me. And she immediately felt it and said, all right, I feel it. We're going to get you looked at right now. She calls and says to the imaging people who were right upstairs, I'm not her friend, I'm her patient, Patricia Lee. That's my incredible gynecologist. I have a friend, it was not her friend, with a palpable mass in her breast. I needed imaged immediately. I knew that day, really, even though I hadn't had a biopsy, because the reaction of she had no poker face. The reaction of the tech, and then the imaging people, the radiologist, I literally looked at her and said, just tell me what you think it is. I can see it in your face. Just tell me. She goes, it's most likely breast cancer. We need to get you biopsied. The next day was New Year's Eve. I came in on the 2nd for the biopsy. On the 3rd, I had a positive biopsy. That's how fast it was. It was incredibly fast. And the urgency I felt from that moment never ebbed. I just sensed that I was a ticking time bomb and I wanted it out. So that Friday, I was sitting in an oncologist's office. I had an appointment with the surgeon. I did everything really fast. That's my experience. Some people need second opinions for whatever reason. They have different things going on. I already had an invasive tumor. It had already left the duct. I felt that I really wanted to get it removed before, unless it already was there, obviously, before it went into my lymph nodes. Why the urgency? And this actually goes back to your original question. The real reason I said yes is because I actually had a very dear friend that passed from breast cancer. She was a young breast cancer patient when she was older than me when I met her, but it happened to her when she was quite young. And later in life, she metastasized. By the time I met her, this was her second time. And she survived for 7 years, 7 amazing years, in which time we got closer and closer and closer. Her name was Tammy Kelly. And she's the reason I'm at the organization. See, can't say her name very well. That throws me off. She was an amazing, amazing philanthropic person. Even during her own battle with metastatic breast cancer, she was constantly volunteering, doing for others, showing up, positive. And it had such an impact on me. It was like, no meal is greater than when you eat with Tammy Kelly, because every bite of food is the best bite you've ever had. Every glass of wine is the best wine you've ever had. Every outing is the most fun you've ever had, because she's literally living her life as if tomorrow may not come. And she just impressed upon me sort of this not to be insular. So when I was diagnosed, I said to the coalition, hang on, I'll be back. The former general counsel, her name is Jen DeSena. She's now a local politician in our town. She's actually gone up in the world. Amazing. She was our general counsel, an incredible woman as well. Very philanthropic prior to going into politics in the town of North Hempstead. She's town supervisor. And she basically said to me, I've been doing this job for a few years. I can do it while you do this, and then you will discuss. And I said, I'll be back. And I was going through all my stuff. And then one day with a scarf on, I just showed up at that boardroom and I said, I'm here. Let's do this. And that's how I kind of became the general counsel. And I did it for several years. Much easier job in the presidency, I'm going to say. It's just a little more, to me it is, because I'm a lawyer. So it's more obvious. That's why it's easier to me. Obviously to others, it would be more challenging. But the transition to president has been interesting. Again, it's because my job is to get everyone else to do their job. And that can always be a challenge when you don't want to be a nag, everyone's a volunteer. And so I'm always like with my little to-do lists, follow up with so-and-so, follow up with so-and-so. And so all my board members, I do it to all of you.
So it's kind of funny what you said, not funny, but when Teresa's here, she said she just knew. And you basically almost repeated the same thing word for word after just saying outside of the room that you didn't even see her episode yet. Like,
No,
is that a common thread in women with breast
Everyone
cancer?
is
that
so different.
That you just know, you just feel something different.
So
in your
I don't know
body?
this person, but I've heard a sort of an anecdotal story that we've had recipients who are so in denial that we almost have to not kidnap them, but almost trick them to go into their doctor's appointment, like with their family, like make the appointment for them and like say, oh, let's go to lunch and like take them to a doctor's appointment. Everyone is a little bit different. I also know some people that are so reticent to have the attention for their families to know, for their jobs to know, that it impacts their taking action. Because of course, if you're taking action, you're going to miss work and everyone's going to see that you're going to all these appointments. And so the answer is no. It wasn't my case. Why? Again, I think if Tammy Kelly had not come into my life, if I had not seen this vibrant, beautiful, full of life, healthy, like looked the picture of health. And now I understood this happens to people that don't look sick, that don't look, that take care of themselves, that eat well. She was literally a chef. She ate so well. And it happened to her. So I think her entry into my life made me understand that this is happening. I remember the radiologist walked out, and remember, she just told me I had breast cancer, essentially. She walked out, and I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I looked up at the sky at Tammy, and I said, all right, here we go. Literally, that's what happened. And I really credit her relationship with me it was not easy. Breast cancer is not easy, But those initial moments where I had to accept what was happening were easier because she was part of my life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense. So, as general counsel, recipient, and now president, I feel like you are the perfect person to talk about or walk people through how to really get involved with the coalition, whether you want to volunteer
Yeah.
or whether you are on the other side going through this experience. Don't want to call it a battle, but this experience.
Yeah.
How do people call up the coalition and say, hey, I need help, which could be the hardest 3 words of
So
their
we
life?
have a really specific onboarding process. So let's talk about volunteering. Volunteering is obviously straightforward. We are manhassetbreastcancer.org. We also have an Instagram page, but manhassetbreastcancer.org, that's our organization. On there's, and I don't have the phone number with me, I don't know by memory. We have a phone number you can call or you can email. We have this wonderful, amazing volunteer named Kathy Gray. She literally fields every call and every email we get, and she directs it to the right person. So it will get to the right person. Don't worry about, she'll figure it out. If she can't, we'll collectively figure it out. People reach out to us for all kinds of reasons, some for volunteering, some for help. She does that initial vetting. So it always gets to us. So if you go to manhassetbreastcancer.org, our email is there. You literally fill out a thing. It goes to her. She gets it to the right committee, the right head of whatever you're interested in. On the more specific of how, if you're a family member or someone who's going through breast cancer, it's similar. We have a policy that the person must want to be contacted. We don't do the thing where, please call my sister, she's diagnosed with breast cancer. We have to have permission to do that. So we sometimes we get there, right, if the person's being reticent, but basically anybody who needs help can call, it's anonymous, or email, right, and provide information. Kathy will call back and just get some general information of where you are. And it can be at any stage of your journey. You can be just diagnosed. You can be in the aftermath of what this does to you and looking for programming, information. Because believe it or not, a lot of what happens to a breast cancer survivor, I'm sure you've heard this before, when you're in the thick of it, as hard as it might be and as difficult physically, the adrenaline is there. And not only that, there's tons of support, right? For most people, obviously that's not universal, but for a lot of people, that's when everyone shows up. It's the long game that is very interesting. And we have all kinds of, for example, like recuperation, long-term problems that happen to breast cancer survivors, like lymphoedema and neuropathy. And we have programming for that. So a lot of people come to us after they're done. And so we encourage that to happen. And at any time, we have services that would probably, be helpful.
Okay.
So what advice would you have for people who aren't sure?
Who aren't what?
Aren't sure. They're not diagnosed and they're just nervous.
Meaning they're feeling that there's something that might be going on
Something
with
that
their
might be
bodies.
going on.
If they reached out, they would be told, obviously we're not doctors. You can't be diagnosed until you're diagnosed, but we would certainly encourage, if someone wanted to talk to someone, we could definitely do that. We're not doctors. So ultimately our advice is always going to be, if you think something is wrong, you have to go see a doctor. But if they don't know where to go, we can help with that. If someone, we also partner up. For example, we have a junior coalition. I should mention that one of our branches is for several years now, we've had high school girls. We call them the junior coalition. They're a 501c3 under our umbrella. They fund a Delphi's program and this is basically social workers. And that's where a lot of that comes in. So people call social workers, right? When they're sort of in this, like, what's going on? What do I do to get them? Who do you call? Where can I go? What kind of doctor do you see if you think you have breast cancer? Most people start with their gynecologist, but really it's the breast surgeon. And I don't mean, fun kind. I mean, the one who's going to save your life by removing.
Not the one in Miami.
No, not the ones in LA. I mean, there's good doctors that do breast cancer in LA. But what I'm talking about is, I always say, the person that really is saving your life initially is the one taking that tumor out, and that's the breast surgeon. The breast surgeon's the one that's going to come in and do the job that needs to get done. And then the oncologist obviously is the follow-up to that but for in breast cancer, not all cancers are like this, but the idea is once the tumor is removed, putting aside metastasis or lymph node involvement, the cancer's out of your body. Everything else is sort of the insurance policies, depending on your particular profile. What I didn't know about breast cancer was huge before this happened to me. I still only know the tip of the iceberg because there's so much. But what an organization like us understands is there's different types, and all those nuances help us direct that person, right, to the right, maybe the right hospital, the right doctors, the right approach, right? We also have women that have you heard the term previvors?
Yes.
Yes. And this is often, again, to the young woman's thing, this is often a younger woman as well, because this decision is being made to prevent breast cancer. So we have a previvors in our organization that have gone to surgeons. And for those that don't know what that is, that's prophylactically removing your breast. Angelina Jolie made this quite famous in order to prevent breast cancer from forming. And it's done when someone has a family history or other high-risk situation going on. So this is obviously a very important community to us. And we have women that are there as well. And we can talk to someone and help them. Maybe that's when you have more time like that, you can be a bit more thoughtful about the surgeon you choose, and you may want to have other considerations because you haven't had cancer. So it's a very different, it's a huge decision, but it's a little bit different. And we have people we try to match our coaches to somewhat the experience of the person calling. But even if we can't do a perfect match, which is, everyone's an individual. For example, I lost my hair and I cold capped and I scarfed. And I ruined my ovaries. All these are that's a lot of information. All these are little nuances about my particular case. And so if we have a care recipient and that person is contemplating, for example, prophylactically removing their ovaries because they want to reduce the risk of it, there's a lot of reasons you might do that I won't go into, but they might say, hey, Bea, there's this woman and she's thinking about doing this. She wants to talk to someone who's made that decision. Would you talk to her? I always say yes. I've lost track. The amount of women I've spoken to, I'm not a care coach, but the care coaches reach out. They have like a list. You volunteer your profile of like things that, medications, the type of cancer you had, the specific, maybe the hospital you went to, your doctor. And if someone wants to reach out to talk to you about a particular nuance of your experience to see if it helps them, I do it all the time. Interestingly enough, the number one thing I talk to people about, cold capping, hair loss. That's because when someone's gone through that, it's easier to talk to someone that's gone through it.
Yeah. And even though you said a lot of information, I bet there's going to be people watching this that's going to appreciate that and say like, oh, I didn't know. I could talk to people about this.
I have taught people more than one how to put a scarf on when you don't have hair. Like there's a trick to it to make it stay on your head. You don't have any hair. You have to put like a little cap and then done. And you do like a messy bun. It's a whole thing. And I have a video that I send and I have it down pat. Because interesting about the organization, I think the organization really reflects something that's universal to women. Women do things like this, like the whole takes a village. Women raise children communally. You learn to be a mom from other women. You learn to be a care, giver to elderly from your friends who've had to do it. And this organization reflects sort of that dynamic among women where we knew we had to help women with breast cancer. And so we've built this. When I say we, the many, many, many countless women who've been part of this organization for the last 28 years have incrementally built this machinery that is essentially a bunch of women helping other women with some rigor around it to make it manageable. But ultimately, it's like not very different than, learning a recipe from your aunt, right? But instead of a recipe from your aunt, you're learning, how to put a cold cap on to keep your hair, right? It's like women giving knowledge to other women to survive and get through something that they're experiencing. By the way, I want to mention men do get breast cancer, but it's majority women. And so when I say that, I don't mean to exclude the fact I totally know that men get breast cancer. But clearly the numbers are a majority of women are getting this, and it's mostly women that reach out to us.
Awesome.
I should mention we also sometimes help people, usually gynecological related cancers. We call them extended cases. And so if you're going through ovarian cancer or things like that, intramural, things like that. We sometimes help those people as well. We can do that
Okay.
as well. We do not have quite as many resources and expertise, but we get them all the time.
Okay. Awesome.
I'm just excited to work with you guys. It's rare where we have a foundation that's, kind of in line with us.
Yes.
And
yeah.
the fact that you guys are advocacy and so strong with it, but still supporting finding the cure is amazing.
Yeah, we're unique in that way. Most organizations are very focused on one or the other. We are very proud that we're pretty much, and there's no such thing as equal, but pretty much 50-50. And we take great pains to make sure that we're always focused on both, because they're quite different. Although I would say it's like a circle, because, the funding and the outreach recipients and the gratitude and the doctors knowing us and it all kind of bleeds into one another.
Right.
And we're always, reminding ourselves that it all works because we're doing all these things together.
Well, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Keep up the advocacy and keep up the finding the cure, because obviously in this environment we're in, there's a lot of pullback with research. And
Yes.
so you guys are more important now
We are very
than
keen.
ever
we're very aware of that.
before.
Keen to be
So
aware.
thank you so much.
Awesome. Awesome. And where can we find you again? What's your website?
ManhassetBreastCancer.org. ManhassetBreastCancer.org. And we are the Manhasset Women's Coalition Against Breast Cancer.
Awesome. So if you want to get involved with the Coalition Against Breast Cancer, Manhasset
It's okay.
womensbreastcancer.org.
ManhassetBreastCancer.org.
And don't forget that on May 12th is the Pink Hands for Cancer golf outing at Pine Hollow.
Yes, we'll be there.
The coalition will be there. We'll all be there. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a fun. But thanks, guys.